At the age of 11, our family moved from Topeka to western Kansas. That was in 1965. The truck carrying our stuff kept having flat tires. That should have been an omen.
So we've got
cornfields.
We've got cornfields to the left of us.
And a straight road for about as far as you can see.
In June of 2023, Rich flew east out of Los Angeles. I headed west from Boston, and we met in the middle of the country, Kansas, western Kansas, the place that shaped Martin Manley and where the inexperience of two coastal elites could be on full display.
Some baby cattle just wagging their tails on the side of the road.
I believe those are called calves, Rich.
When we looked around, all we saw was endless flat land, stretching out to a ruler-straight horizon.
Yep, 100 square miles in view. Not a person in sight. Plenty of calves, though. Martin grew up in a place called Pawnee Rock. In the 1800s, the actual Pawnee Rock was a landmark on the Santa Fe Trail. As one journalist at the time wrote, "The rock springs like a huge wart from the carpeted green of the prairie." Legend has it, travelers fearing killers or thieves would bury their valuables by the rock in hopes of returning to them later. Some never did, leaving their treasure still buried in the surrounding fields.
Today, Pawnee Rock is a blink-and-you-miss-it speck, what Martin referred to as an oil spot off a two-lane road officially known as Highway 56. Population around 190. In the 1960s, Martin lived there with his family, his few friends. These were the people we thought might know a different Martin. Maybe not the version of Martin that he wanted to present when he was courting someone or trying to impress the world with his genius, but an unedited version that very few people got to know.
Before we moved, I could have barely told you the difference between a horse and a cow. Now, instead of kids my age as far as the eye could see, I had my brother, my sister, and the sound of moos.
But we also came out here because we had to explore a mystery that Martin left when he died. One we'd encountered when we first started digging into his story, and that we had to at least try to get to the bottom of. And it was something we thought we could only answer here. From 30 for 30 Podcasts, I'm Rich Levine.
I'm Nick Altshuler. This is Chasing Basketball Heaven, Episode 5, The Last Manley.
In 1891, a 30-year-old named James Naismith was inventing the game of basketball at a YMCA building in Springfield, Massachusetts.
As the game took shape, Naismith moved to Lawrence, Kansas, where in 1898 he became the first basketball coach for the University of Kansas Jayhawks. It was right around this time that someone decided to cut holes in the bottom of the peach baskets, marking perhaps the sport's biggest leap in efficiency to that point. No more ladders, which was a bummer to that one guy.
You know you are that one guy.
It was a bummer.
Big bummer. But you wonder, could Naismith have ever fathomed how fast, athletic, and efficient his game would become? Not to mention how important KU basketball would become to people across the state. People like Martin Manley.
Kansas 53, North Carolina 52.
I grew up in the 1950s and 60s as a KU Jayhawk fan. I used to drag around a transistor radio with me whenever they played.
It's crossed down by Chamberlain, and that's it. Double overtime.
I kept the team's stats, yelled when they won, and cried when they lost. In those days, KU still had won more college games than Kentucky, or, for that matter, anyone else. That's the atmosphere I and my friends grew up in. At the time, Kansas was inferior to no other state or area in sports, and certainly not in basketball.
Oddly, Martin never played much basketball, perhaps sensing his superiority lay elsewhere. But that elsewhere was not under the Manley family roof. To learn more about the childhood that shaped Martin, we reached out to his siblings.
So we're passing like a large red barn.
A lot of farm equipment.
Barbie Flick, Martin's older sister lives in Maple Hill.
Hey, there's a cow taking a bath in one of the man-made lakes. That's why you come out here.
Martin also has a younger brother, Michael, who we think lives in El Paso, but he hasn't responded to any calls or emails. That makes Barbie, for now at least, our only eyewitness to the childhood which helped create Martin Manley. After a bumpy few minutes along a gravel road...
Oh, wow. Looks like we're pulling up. It's a small, one-story white house. There's some big, I assume, maples in the front yard.
And a little kitty cat greeting us at the front door.
Hey, buddy.
Okay.
Let's go to work.
Barbie Flick is Martin's older sister by 2 years. A tiny woman, not much more than 5 feet tall. Thin glasses, short, dark brown hair.
The word spunky comes to mind.
If Barbie told you she was in her 70s, you'd say, no way, and you'd actually mean it. We're standing in a field of wildflowers, mere steps away from 4 handcrafted, one-of-a-kind horizontal beehives.
To me, this is what I'm proud of. Is the beehives.
Yeah.
Because I built them. Nobody has horizontal hives but me in this part of the country.
It's giving off a big igloo cooler vibe, except it's full of bees.
Yeah.
Rich and I see hives and think honey and bee stings. But a Manley, of course, sees the beauty in numbers.
Which we learned watching Barbie pull out a mesh screen from under one of her hives.
That's the thing I'm obsessed with statistics on. Oh yeah, I gotta tell you this. I know this is about Martin, but anyway. First of all, I get a baseline of how many mites are falling down. And nobody does this because very few people have trays. They couldn't do it.
You're counting mites. How small is a mite?
I'll find one.
Little black speck?
Well, those are poop.
Okay.
I developed my own numbers, my own system, and someday, somebody will be interested in my work. Martin probably would have liked that, although he might not have liked bees.
Check. Talking on the microphone, looking at a black fedora.
And I'm looking at Basketball Heaven, the original edition.
When we sat down at Barbie's kitchen table, she started sharing some of her earliest memories of Martin.
I was wanted. Martin wasn't. Daddy did not speak to her for the first 6 months of her pregnancy, and he was mad at her for getting pregnant. You can't tell me that didn't affect the child.
And if that somehow wasn't potentially traumatic enough...
It's the weirdest story, but I remember it. He might have been closer to 4, and he was freaking out because a ladybug was on him. And Mommy's just got so upset with him, and she was spanking him, and he's just crying because the ladybug's on him. And now I'm sure there was more going on because she wasn't like that, to just punish somebody, But it just seemed like he was always in trouble. And then when we were in high school, I never had to wash the dishes because he was in trouble so many times.
That was his punishment?
That was his punishment.
Martin's dad was a World War II vet. His mom worked multiple jobs her entire life. After some time in Topeka, Mr. Manley took a new job and moved the family some 200 miles out into the wheat fields of Pawnee Rock. It was a setting that didn't ask if, but how you were going to entertain yourself.
I was just a teenage girl who knew how to daydream, so I survived that way. But he was restless. He would do things to torment me. I learned how to turn any object into a weapon, and I'm still good at it. I threw hot grease off the stove on him, on his back,
Wow.
Whoa. Someone's got to really piss you off.
And he was, I know, and I don't know what it was.
Man, I feel like I am still processing that story.
I think we all are.
I thought, oh, crap, I'm going to die. So I'm going to get killed. I thought maybe he'd kill me, but if not, my parents might. And he loved to tell on me. He loved to get me in trouble. He would listen for anything. And I was a goody two-shoes, so it drove him nuts because I didn't do anything wrong. And he never told. They never knew he had those burns on his back, and I don't know why.
He must have done something really bad to deserve
scared
it.
the shit out of him, to be honest.
Maybe, but I would take a coat hanger, and take the hook part, and I just...
Ouch. Did you scratch him?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Martin's relationship with his siblings was idiosyncratic. At school, relationships with his peers weren't much better.
Even as I got older, I always took the bus home, and so I really never spent a lot of time with the kids in town. I can't say I cared. They were a bunch of hicks as far as I was concerned, but then I'm not sure I even know what a hick was. Just that whatever Martin Manley was, he wasn't one of them. Of course, I'm sure from their perspective, they were just as happy not to be one of me.
But even as he and his sister could be at each other's throats, Barbie was still there to protect him when he needed it.
I remember seeing some boys corner him and threatening him and picking on him. And I remember running over there, and I was going to beat those boys up. They were scared of me. That was one of those times you remember I did love him, because nobody was going to mess with my brother.
And she recognized that as much as Martin was a loner, the Manley kids were a lot alike, going through the same things, just in their own worlds.
I think maybe he always did feel like a misfit.
I spent thousands of hours as a teenager making up pretend baseball, football, and basketball leagues, drawing plays from cutout pieces of paper in a shoebox, keeping stats from make-believe players and teams. There was only one thing to do every day: satisfy whatever curiosity I had. In some respects, that became an obsession.
How are you and Martin alike?
Well, he was a prepper. I'm still a prepper, prepared for the worst case scenario of everything. We are both actually pretty analytical. I love statistics, but he was so obsessed. If he couldn't find anything else to keep statistics on, he admitted it to me. He kept statistics on what he ate for lunch. Martin believed that he had an addictive tendency. So he said he never drank or did drugs because he didn't believe he could stop. And, Mike, my other brother, he definitely is addicted. He's on life support right now.
Michael, the third Manley. We'd learned that he basically drank himself to death. It finally made sense why he didn't return our calls or emails. He couldn't.
Mike, I had to make the decision the other day. Are we going to pull the tubes? I still haven't cried. He may die. I may get the phone call today. I didn't cry when my mom died. I didn't cry when my dad died. And it's not that I didn't feel anything. It just didn't come. I don't know. Maybe I'm a lot like Martin.
Then, as if on cue,
The phone rang. It was the hospital, calling about Mike.
we wanted to give Barbie some privacy, so we stepped outside for some fresh air and turned off the recorder. Barbie had shared so much with us, but there was one thing we hadn't asked her yet.
It had to do with one of the other reasons we came to Kansas. An item on Martin's website that had made international headlines. But now Barbie was on a phone call about her younger brother's life support, and we weren't sure when we might broach this other subject.
But it turns out we didn't have to.
As I stood out on the patio, Barbie's husband Phil moseyed over and broached the subject himself. I scrambled to grab my phone and hit the record button, just in time to hear him mention the mysterious GPS coordinates.
What is it? A GPS?
Yeah, the coordinates.
Coordinates? And he put them in there. And it was, and I think Martin didn't really make mistakes and he was real detailed, but it ended up being at this little park, but it was in there somewhere in these coordinates. And the police called us, and I don't know what he did with the gold and silver.
It's interesting. Yeah, we heard about that too. Did he ever talk to you about his gold?
No. We never did know what he actually did with it.
The hunt for Martin Manley's gold. After the break. On the night of August 15th, 2013, a full 12 hours after Martin was found dead, a local Kansas City TV news producer returned home from his shift. He told his daughter about a crazy email he received that day at work with a link to a new website.
She read it and was absolutely fascinated. So she hopped onto Reddit and sent it out to the world.
A 60-year-old committed suicide today, but before doing so, he put this website up.
In real time, click by click, the online community absorbed the thud of Martin's legacy. Conversations unfolded. Conversations like these.
This might be the cheeriest man to ever commit suicide.
Depression never affects my sense of humor. I hope he ate 2 trays of brownies before he died.
When we found out my dad had terminal cancer, we went straight to McDonald's and shared a Big Mac, because why the fuck not?
But as Redditors dug deeper into Martin's website, they stumbled on a section that turned his story from that of a lonely, quirky old man into an international news item. Here's why. As part of the extensive suicide planning, he wanted the world to know about a little investment he'd made 15 years earlier.
I bought $30,000 in 1/10-ounce gold coins and pre-1965 silver coins. Gold went up to $1,700 and silver to $44, making my stash worth over $200,000.
Under that, Martin pasted a set of numbers, coordinates, the ones his brother-in-law Phil Flick mentioned.
38.800542 minus 94.687884.
The coordinates lead to a forest south of Kansas City in the Overland Arboretum. Now go get that treasure, Redditors.
Okay. 10 years later, we drove to the Overland Park Arboretum and Botanical Gardens, just south of Kansas City, where we met with Mark Van Sickle, a.k.a. Mark the Overseer. Back in 2013, he worked as a radio producer for the morning show on KRBZ-FM, The Buzz.
So Mark, where does it start? You're at work that day, right?
Yeah, I was at work that day. My buddy Danny, who was co-host of the morning show, he's always looking up for local news stories and stuff like that. He's like, some guy just offed himself in the police parking lot. One of my police friends just texts me. This is not even on the local news yet. And then after we finally get some confirmation that it actually happened, we're like, well, we should probably talk about this. They found the website and everything. And from there, it's just oh man, start deep diving into it.
Death and Buried Treasure in Kansas City. A drive time radio show couldn't ask for a better storyline to carry a morning.
The next step was obvious. Find these coordinates the internet has been talking about, throw the station's van keys to the overseer, and have him haul ass to the Arboretum.
It was an exhilarating experience. I mean, those vans can't really go very fast, but I was trying to push it as fast as I could.
There's money on the line.
Yeah, the steering wheel's shaking a little bit as I'm driving down the highway.
We met Mark by the front gate, but on the day of the hunt, back in 2013, just trying to find the quickest route to a dot on a map, Mark pulled over by a bridge, crossed a creek, and bushwhacked his way through the forest, like Indiana Jones in Chief's gear.
Deer scattered ahead of him. Listeners with shovels in hand appeared beside him. News helicopters began circling overhead. And all the while, Mark was giving live on-air updates until they reached a path in the Arboretum Sculpture Garden and found crime scene tape.
The police had gotten there first.
So they were out here up on the trail by the statues. By the time I had wandered my way up the hill from the creek and got there.
They were guarding the coordinates.
I think they were.
You may be hearing in my voice a developing treasure fever. Searching for gold is addictive, and my fever only rose from there. The coordinates to where we're heading are literally right after a sentence about his gold and silver.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
It's not down the page. I forgot. It's next to the reference.
No, it says my gold is worth more than $200,000.
Here's coordinates.
Here are the coordinates.
Check this out.
On the day Martin's coordinates went viral, just a faint rumor of buried coins got the police, an army of Redditors, Mark, and loyal Buzz listeners to race across town at rush hour. And now, a decade later, still no one has ever come forward to say they found anything. And here we are.
We've got a shoddy metal detector and modern GPS technology directing us to a spot about 30 yards off the trail. And there, at around 38.8 degrees north and negative 94.6 degrees west, I got my first big treasure high.
in the actual...
1,000% there was treasure in this tree.
So what are you looking at?
So I'm looking at the rotted stump of a tree, that the majority of which is on the ground next to us, but it's about a stump 6 feet high, but it's hollow. And the hollow is about 4 feet deep. And there's a small hole, maybe for a squirrel or the groundhogs on the bottom. But you can 100% see a bag, a duffel bag full of gold being stuffed into this tree and then slid out right onto the bottom. It's a great hiding spot.
Oh, no doubt.
Oh, wow.
Hopped up on solid gold adrenaline, I began scanning the surrounding area for objects I could interpret as evidence that this was a great spot to bury treasure. And there was something. A statue. Oh, I didn't even know it. It's directly across from a statue on the other side of the trail. I don't know what that statue is, but...
It would be a landmark,
Imagine if it's a James Taylor statue.
It looks like Christ, honestly. I think it's a man on a crucifix. Turns out, similar pose, very different man. Statue directly across from the coordinates.
Jesus?
It's not Jesus Christ.
Who is it? Is it Martin Manley?
Michael Jackson.
Oh, no.
Yes, not the king of the Jews, the king of pop.
In my defense, this was a depiction of Wind Machine Michael. MJ at his most, oh! Which is a pose that's really just some planks and nails away from the crucifixion. At least, when seen through a filter of fall leaves.
My Google search revealed the statue was a replica of one by Chinese sculptor Lu Zhenkang and was placed by the side of the trail back in 2011, 2 years before Martin's death. You can imagine a bizarre scavenger hunt with Manley-like clues. When you find someone who's a real thriller, go north 30 paces. But in 2013, the police turned Mark and his fellow treasure hunters away.
The cops were basically saying, hey, you can't dig on this property because it's
owned by the
privately,
state.
Yeah. You guys have to leave. That was kind of their saying to us, so that's all I heard.
Later that day, those same police held a press conference.
Family members have told city officials that he did buy gold, but that he either gave it away or sold it, but he did not bury it, okay? I mean, you probably have a better chance of winning a prize from the lotto than you do to find anything out here.
But Mark never shook the feeling that there had been something in the park that day. A feeling that only grew after stumbling through the woods with us.
So, your final thought on that was there treasure at some point?
I feel like there was. I feel like that's a great spot. And with a landmark like Michael Jackson, I mean, come on. That's... You got to have a landmark too, I feel like.
Yes, that's one people remember.
Mark is one in a long line of people with a theory about the treasure. And after thinking about this treasure for years and actually going to search for it, we definitely have some theories too.
Treasure or no treasure, Martin had thought a lot about what he wanted to happen after his death, and how his death was one thing, perhaps the biggest thing that could cement his legacy. He wanted to be remembered. Basketball Heaven hadn't done it. None of his statistical analysis had done it. An early, cutting-edge satellite TV business, no. But maybe, just maybe, a hyper-efficient death was the thing.
I remember reading through Martin's list of reasons for taking his own life. Some personal, some common, even relatable. But throughout, there is the unexpected emotional through line of pride.
This may be the most detailed example of a suicide letter in history, something to be entered into the Guinness Book of Records. My hope is that it is.
But for that to happen, the world had to notice, which they did when the sad truth of one person's death was heightened by a hint of something extraordinary.
So yes, we believe Martin published those coordinates as a failsafe. He figured, if my death doesn't grab the world's attention, maybe this mystery will.
And it worked. The New York Daily News picked up that treasure hunt. The Daily Mail did a story. A week after Martin's death, Don Lemon was talking about it on CNN.
On the website, he apologizes to his friends, family, and the police who were going to find him. He also said he was, quote, thrilled to death to leave behind a digital legacy for himself.
But was anything ever hidden in the park?
We think yes. That spot is too good not to leave a coin, a memento, a Pepsi.
But was there actually a life-changing sum of buried treasure? The strongest clue to that answer might actually lie somewhere else entirely.
I'm gonna try not to cry through this whole thing.
We want to introduce you to Martin's stepdaughter, Marissa.
Martin met his second wife, Terry, on a dating website, and they quickly proceeded down the aisle. After they married, Martin became the stepfather to Terry's 2 daughters. He wasn't especially close to the oldest. But Marissa, who was about 6 when she met Martin, says the two just clicked.
We were really, really close. He just got me in a way that no one else did, and I think I did the same for him. So we were just very special to each other.
Marissa met us at her mom's house in Overland Park. As we sat around the kitchen table, her mom's cat would occasionally hop up, perhaps feeling Marissa's need for comfort. Terry brought us all Sonic cheeseburgers, a Kansas staple, we're told, knowing we all needed something.
I don't remember the first time I met him. I remember when he bought me a Barbie at Walmart. And I figured he was just trying to buy my affection because he was dating my mom. But I was cool with it. I was excited to get that Barbie. And I was like, all right, I like this guy. Like, I'm good with him.
Leave it to Martin to find the most efficient way to a young girl's heart.
And a most bizarre way to bond with his new stepdaughters.
He taught us lessons. We had a whole... How long was it, Mom? It was like weeks. We had to do these lessons in the office, in the basement.
With like Professor Martin, basically?
With Professor Martin, teaching us about stocks, teaching us about interest, CDs. I don't even remember 99% of it, but I had to learn at the time so much. And then we had to take little tests over it to see how we were doing. And he just really wanted to instill in us this knowledge that he had that he wanted to share about, you know, how to make money with stocks.
How old were you?
Oh, God, I was really young. I was 7 years old, sitting on the floor of his office.
And one of my many eerie parallels to Martin's life, I also married a woman with 2 young daughters. They were a little younger than Marissa and her sister when Martin entered the picture. I will say there is something incredibly unique and rewarding about the step relationship.
Like, I remember when I was really young, he called me weird, and I thought it was a mean thing to say, but it was a compliment coming from him because he was weird too. And he liked that I was different. And from a young age, I always thought and felt things differently than most people. He loved that about me.
Do you remember how old you were, or I don't know if you did, but the first time you said, I love you too? Because for me, I tell my stepdaughters all the time, I love them. I still have yet to receive.
Oh, no. That's tragic.
It's not, because I know they do. I know that it's just, but was it something that came naturally to you?
I have always been an extremely loving person, and I think that's what he loved the most about me. He would get together with his poker buddies once a month, and I guess he would just tell them about how much he loved me and how I was his little princess, is what he would call me.
Their connection grew, even as their family made it through Martin and Terry's relatively amicable divorce.
He would come over and help my mom with things. I would call him on the phone, wanting to talk to him. Like I said, we were very, very close. We just always got each other, and I still always call him my stepdad, even though they had been divorced for many years before he passed. He always was and always will be my stepdad.
In the last year of Martin's life, he made an extra effort to be present in Marissa's.
He would show up at my work. I worked at a winery in Paxico, Kansas, which is about half an hour from Manhattan, where I was living. He didn't drink, certainly not wine, so there was no reason for him to be there. He would just, all of a sudden, he would just show up, and I treasure those times now because they were after he had already been planning, and he was just trying to get as much time with me as he could.
Time. It was maybe Martin's most valuable currency, and he chose to spend it on his stepdaughter. I can almost see Martin using an efficiency model to build a calendar in which he optimizes getting as much time with Marissa as possible.
It's also my hope that this website will be more than just a memorial to my life and those around me, that somehow, some way, it'll be an inspiration. Not to leave life prematurely, but to have a more fulfilling life, and one that centers more around others than oneself. If I could bottle the last 14 months and apply it to a much earlier age, I would have been a far superior contributor to society.
He always gave me different coins.
We had to ask Marissa about the treasure.
He had coins from different countries and different times. I still have it. I called it my treasure box. This makes me think maybe he would bury treasure, but he hid, I think it was 50 for each of us, little slips of paper that said, "I love you." And he hid them all over the house. And they were in very obscure places. And if we found them, he had a bracket system for like however many we found. They were redeemable for coupons, which were redeemable for different activities and things. And so my sister and I would go on little treasure hunts looking for these little "I love you" slips of paper. She didn't really care much about it. She gave up quickly and didn't really think anything of it, but I tried to find as many as I possibly could. Not just because that means I would get the best prize, but every time I got a little slip of paper that had his handwriting saying "I love you," it was a little reminder of how much he loved me, even though he wasn't there anymore. So I still have all of them. I never redeemed them for anything. I just kept them.
And now I'm thinking, because it's, from reading his work, it's so obvious how much he loved you, and it's so obvious talking to you how much you loved him, that I feel like he would have given you the money.
I think so too. If there was any, yeah, I don't see why he would bury treasure.
Manleys may have a hard time expressing love. Marissa drew it out of Martin, made it real. After our talk, we couldn't imagine he'd use a public park to leave life-changing money for a stranger. That's how you bury a legacy. Taking care of the loved ones you leave behind, that's how you build a legacy.
It's something we've come to learn ourselves over the past couple years. Deep down, we think Martin knew it too.
On the other hand, we think Martin was still a man who needed to at least try to have the last word on his own life.
But here's something else we've come to learn. In life, you get to leave your own mark. But that mark is only a Rorschach test. Your legacy will be defined by the rest of us.
The ones left behind will tell your story. People like Marissa and Barbie, who had stepped away to take that phone call during our visit to her home, before we found ourselves immersed in a good old-fashioned treasure hunt.
But when Barbie did come back from her call, she had some news that brought us back to reality. Wait, hold on, wait 1 sec, just from the...
Oh, the air conditioner? We can turn it off.
Yeah, that would be great if you turn it off. I'll break file.
The three of us settled back down at Barbie's dining room table.
The air is heavy, Barbie has just signed off on pulling her youngest brother's life support.
Sorry to hear that about Mike.
Yeah, it's been an ugly. He started losing weight. They couldn't figure out what. They put him in the hospital, but things went downhill from there. And now we're pulling the tubes and see if he can make it or he doesn't make it. That's what we're doing right now.
When I listen back to how Barbie delivered this news, it feels so matter of fact. A day later, she'd get official confirmation that her youngest brother, Michael Manley, was dead. In the moment, not knowing what to say, I just carried on as if nothing had happened. And Barbie followed suit. What was I saying? Oh, do you think maybe in the way that you were the favorite child, Martin was more of a black sheep?
He says we were a really dysfunctional family, and I'm like, you don't know how lucky you were. I've seen dysfunctional families, you know. Nobody abused us except Martin. You know?
As we learned from his analysis of Star Trek and the good Dr. Timison, Martin would sometimes omit a variable or a counter-argument if it didn't align with what he was trying to prove. Now, sitting with Barbie, it's hard not to see certain manly qualities we've gotten to know in Martin. She's asked us to forget that she just told us that Martin's father didn't speak to his mother for 6 months of her pregnancy, that his mother spanked him over a ladybug, that Barbie purposefully scalded him with hot grease. And I bet if you were to ask Martin about those same things, he'd say he didn't remember any of them.
As Rich said, there have been many times in the course of our reporting where we saw some aspects of ourselves in Martin. Sometimes it was inspiring. Many times it made us uncomfortable. I remember sitting with Martin's second wife, Terry, her telling us how Martin's lack of passion contributed to the dissolution of their marriage, and reminding myself to call my wife right after. I remember trying to come up with a kind of variation on those What Would Jesus Do bracelets? WWMD, DDT. What would Martin do? Don't do that. Still, for all the ways that spending time with Barbie was as close as we'll ever get to spending time with Martin, there's one obvious difference between them. Barbie is alive and well, sharp as a bee's butt. I kept wondering, what if Martin had had so many of the manly qualities, but had been just a little less stubborn? What if he was a little less self-destructive, a little less alone? What if is a dangerous game, but hanging out with Barbie, you could imagine a version of Martin whose plan for the inevitable end wasn't to preempt it.
Martin and Barbie shared a fear for what the future held, and actually both planned to meet it head on. They just did so in different ways. Barbie, for example, had hinted that she was going to write out the end of times in her basement.
Can I ask what's in your basement as a prepper, like your brother?
Yeah.
Just cans of soup? Or
Well, you want to go down there?
Do I? Yes.
Yes.
Jumping at the chance for emotional fresh air, we went down into a cellar with a woman who never cries and can turn anything into a weapon.
Hi, it's Barbie. Hey, would I be able to come just a little bit late?
The last Manley, who postponed a hair appointment to give us the tour.
So there's nothing fancy about our basement here, so...
Walking down the worn wooden stairs, you enter a basement that stretches the length of the house. Half is divided into sections by old office cubicles. One is Phil's office. One is for Barbie's sewing. One holds a bed, and one holds an intricate system of 50-gallon trash cans and hoses.
This is where we store our water.
Oh, wow.
I think I counted over 300 gallons once.
In the other half of the basement, there's boxes of old files, luggage, one of those little aerobics trampolines, basement stuff. But also a canned feast fit for at least a year into the end of days.
These are the dried things you buy in the buckets. These are canned things that are good for long life. This stuff is like 25 year, but these, they won't put expiration dates on it. You know, the Mennonites, you know, their specialty is canning meats and foods. And
Chili, chuck beef, diced beef, dried beef ribeye.
They actually make good canned butter. They make good canned cheese, believe it or not.
Wow. Freeze-dried ice cream, MREs, 720 serving buckets of coffee.
Something we just found.
Modern pantry whole milk.
It's whole milk.
That'll last?
It lasts and
It's shelf-
tastes good.
And you get it at the dollar store.
Yeah.
And jars of Barbie's honey, some of which she sent us home with.
If you had to choose between the siblings, it's clear whose basement you'd rather hunker down in to survive a tornado, and whose you'd rather use to write 3 volumes on basketball statistics. There's bits of Martin down there in Barbie's basement, too.
We still have his safe. We don't keep it locked or anything, but it's a safe that was in his closet. There's a picture of Martin. We had it at his funeral.
As our tour ends, we spot a table by the stairs. There's a heap of old clothes that Barbie will give away, and a stack of books and CDs that are a little curious.
That's my donate to the Goodwill pile. That's what all these are.
It's not like doomsday audio CDs, right? Like
Well, that could be. That one
the
would
coming
be.
battle of the two marks.
This is just all about Bible prophecy.
Later, I skimmed through some of the author's works, and of course, a lot has to do with planning for a tumultuous future. One passage resonated with our quest to better understand Martin, his work, his life, his death. It reads, "Do we know who we are? Do we know who we will become? Are we certain that we want to be who we are presently becoming? A vision for the future will not come from the top down, but from the bottom up, and infuse in all of us hope for the future, as well as our identity in that future." And then the author quotes the Bible, Isaiah 56:5. "It is the hope that the Lord would give us a name which shall not be cut off."
A name that will last through time.
We kept thinking about Martin's legacy. Legacies, really. And the more we thought about Martin, the more some things nagged at us. Was Martin really the, quote, Bill James of basketball? Was basketball heaven even that good? We needed to take one last shot at finding answers, for us and for Martin. Oh, here he comes. So we asked the only person who would really know.
Next time, on the final episode of Chasing Basketball Heaven, we fly back to Kansas one more time to climb the mountain and meet the guru himself.
Mr. James.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good. Come on in.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Chasing Basketball Heaven is a 30 for 30 podcast produced by ESPN, Hyperobject Industries, and Meadowlark Media.
It was reported and hosted by Nick Altshuler and Rich Levine, with Craig Kilborn as the voice of Martin Manley.
Executive producers from Hyperobject Industries and Meadowlark Media are Adam McKay, Claire Slaughter, and Bradley Campbell. Senior editorial producer of 30 for 30 podcasts is Preethi Varathan. This series' senior producer is Raghu Manavalan.
The series producer is Gus Navarro.
Consulting producer was Gary Honig.
Story editors were Jamie York and Mac Montandon.
Sound design and mixing by John Delore.
Theme song composed by Allison Leighton Brown and John Delore.
Show art by Brian Lutz.
Fact checking by Matt Giles and David Sabino.
Our sensitivity reader was John Moe.
For 30 for 30 and ESPN, line producer is Catherine Sankey.
Associate producer is Isabella Seaman.
Production assistants are Diamante McKelvey and Anthony Salas.
Producer is Carolyn Hepburn.
Senior producers are Marquise Daisy and Gentry Kirby.
Heather Anderson, Marcia Cook, Brian Lockhart, and Burke Magnus are executive producers for 30 for 30.
Rights and clearance by Jennifer Thorpe and Cal Griffith. This podcast was developed by Tara Nadolny and Cynthia Parabello. To listen to more sports series like this one, search 30 for 30 podcasts wherever you listen to podcasts, or find us at 30for30podcast.com. Thanks for listening.